videos off.
What do you say? Where's that?
There's been a little line down there. You might get
Dark.
Ah, Gina, and you made it.
I did.
All right. Where are you?
We're outside of Ocala, Florida,
Nice.
driving.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Science fiction.
Indeed.
A husband who does this all the time and knows how to make it work.
Ah, cool.
Nice to have someone that knows what they're doing, right?
Hello, Daryl.
Hello, John. Hello, Chuck.
Hello, Daryl. Johnny?
Hello, Cameron.
Hello.
Hello, Jean Ann.
Hello.
Hey, Cameron.
Yes.
Gwen texted me. He's at work in the ICU in the COVID ward. He thinks he'll be able to chime in, but he may not.
Okay. So he did accept the meeting. So
I think he's having to work a little OT. He sent me a picture of him in the ward with this spacesuit helmet that he had on.
maybe that's his doctor's note.
Maybe so.
I think Jean Ann's in for a rough ride tonight. She's got her seatbelt on and everything.
Jean Ann, you said you were camping. Did you bring your trailer with you and doing a little traveling through Florida?
Yeah, we did. We brought it down for a fiberglass rally. It's called Eggs and S'more.
Oh, how fun is that?
It's a lot of fun. There's all kinds of small fiberglass campers, and we've gotten to know some of the people there from all over the United States. And
Very cool.
we did that for several days, and it was freezing cold. It was in North Florida, 27 degrees at night. But it's warmed up since then. Then we went down and saw friends and close to Naples, Bonita Beach, and Venice, and so now we're winding our way back.
Nice. Nice time of year to go to Florida.
It was beautiful in South Florida, really gorgeous.
Sounds wonderful.
So, Jean Ann, where are you now? What part of the country?
We're in Central Florida. We're going north on 75, just past
Okay.
Ocala. We're headed towards where are we?
Gainesville.
Gainesville. We're going to camp outside of Gainesville tonight.
Great.
Our little camper's pretty great. All you have to do is pull in, plug in, and hook the water up, and you're ready.
Yeah, sounds good. Yeah, I used to spend a lot of time on the bus, so
Yeah.
I kind of miss the RV. Someday I want to do an RV thing. However, it scares me because I'm afraid that I'll go to my first campsite and next door to me will be Brad, because he has one. Brad across the street, Brad
Poetic
Jackson.
RVers, especially I
Jean Ann and Johnny.
didn't know he had one.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's got one. Getting ready to get a bigger one.
Need a bigger one than ours.
Yeah.
Ours is only 19 feet long, including the tongue. That's pretty small.
Yeah. And how much do you need? You know.
Really, it has a bathroom and it has a queen size bed. So that's all you need.
Whatever happened to your RV, Daryl?
Sold it. Actually traded it
Yeah.
for another motorcycle, which I did not need.
Oh, right.
But the grandsons ride them, so
It was nice. You showed it to me that one time, you know?
yeah, we got some good use out of it. I had it several years.
Yeah. Someday.
Hello, Jeff. How you doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm well, thank you.
Hey, Jim. Hi.
Hi,
Haven't seen you in a while.
how are you?
Good.
Good. It has been a while.
It has.
I need to stop by and get some cheese from you.
I've got some.
I bet
What?
you've got lots.
About 200 varieties.
I want some of that aged cheddar. That's the
Oh,
good
yeah.
stuff.
I've got a 10-year cheddar that's awesome.
Ooh.
Yeah.
I'll have to stop by and get some of that.
It's a little pricey, but it's good.
Well, that's all right.
Yeah,
You got to pay for quality, right?
that's right. Where you're sitting, the fan is right in your head.
Oh,
It's very interesting. Yeah,
like a halo.
it is. It's going around.
If it bothers you, I'll turn it off.
Not at all. Kind of makes everything more interesting.
Oh gosh.
Okay, I've got 7 o'clock straight up, so let's get going. Welcome everyone to the January Planning and Zoning Commission meeting. I hope everyone is well. We actually have folks here from that are traveling and on the road, so that's kind of unique and interesting that that we can hold these meetings with somebody that's actually traveling. So very cool. Since we have so many people tonight, Megan, I'm going to ask you to do the roll call in case there's someone on the screen that I can't see, if you would, please.
Yeah, that's fine.
I know I threw that on you, so I apologize. I'll give you time to prepare.
Can you mute yours?
I am muted now.
Okay.
Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Daryl McGuire,
Here.
Jean Ann Hutchinson. You're muted.
Here.
Jeff Garrison,
Here.
John Dillon,
Here.
Wynn Oaks,
I'm here.
okay. Alexi Pavlov, Chuck Branch.
Here.
And Pete Renfro.
Saw him earlier. Yes. Pete, are you there?
Here.
Alexi's the only one absent.
Are we good?
Yep.
All right, good deal. Thank you. Okay, first up on the agenda tonight is the approval of minutes from the previous meeting from December the 28th. If everyone has had an opportunity to review the minutes, if there are any changes, additions, or deletions, please state. Otherwise, I would entertain a motion.
I'll
John?
make a motion. We approve the minutes for December 28th, 2020.
Pardon me, John, I'm sorry. We have a motion on the floor to approve. Do I have a second? Jeff Garrison is a second. All in favor, just raise your hand. Okay, unanimous. Thank you all. Scheduled visitors tonight. We have a guest here, Associate Professor of Physics from Truman University, to talk about dark skies, and I will allow Cameron to introduce his guest.
Yes, on the Zoom tonight, we have Professor Gokhale with the Truman State University. He is here to discuss, as you all know, we have this Luke device, the dark sky device up on top of City Hall that we were collecting some data for the night skies. But anyway, he is here this evening to kind of give you an update on the findings of that and answer any questions that you guys might have.
All right, so can I share screens, Cameron?
Yep, let me.
Yeah, just enable that.
Okay.
Okay, thanks, Cameron, and thank you, everyone. I'm really excited for the contributions from the city of Ozark, and Cameron has been really great sending the data, and the data look great, very useful to me personally, as you know, for the science aspect of it. So I'll kind of give you an overview of what we are doing, and then we'll talk about the specific data we are getting from the city of Ozark and how it compares to what we're getting from other places in Missouri. So if I could just Give me a second to share my screen. Can everyone hear me well?
Yes.
Here? Okay. All right. Can everyone see my screen? Yeah. Okay. I'll see if the slideshow thingy works. I'm on my home computer, and we were supposed to get like 8 inches of snow today, but we got instead half an inch of ice. So I'm stuck at home. Okay. So this program is a program that I was interested in like about 3 or 4 years ago, was to just measure what is called the sky brightness, and the name is suggestive sky brightness. You want to measure how bright the sky is. Now, ideally, the sky should be absolutely dark where there are no stars at night if the moon is not out. But because of artificial light that we use, and a lot of that light goes up into the sky because, you know, we don't have appropriate fixtures that direct the light towards the ground where it needs to go, our skies aren't dark anymore. There is a brightness to it, and that's the thing that we quantify because it's a good measure of the amount of light pollution at a given location. And so we here at Truman State are collaborating with the Missouri chapter of the International Dark Sky Association, which is a organization that has taken the lead in combating the bad effects of light pollution and to create awareness and bring about change and so on and so forth. So that's kind of the background, if you will. And my background is in astronomy, so obviously that directly correlates with sky brightness because the astronomers are up at night looking up into the sky, and they notice this before other people. I just want to make one thing or emphasize one thing that I always do, is that even though astronomers notice light pollution more than others and have kind of taken the lead in some of these efforts for that reason, the problem of light pollution actually is more detrimental to other aspects of civilization, if you will. It affects our human health, it affects plant and animal health, it affects the environment. And I think it's just rude for, say, a neighbor to have bad lighting in their yard that shines into my window. I mean, we would not tolerate anyone playing loud music at 2 o'clock at night. Then why should we tolerate them having these floodlights going every which way? And so just from that point of view, I think it is something that we should try and mitigate or curb as much as possible. So, okay, with that background, let's kind of take a look at a few maps and diagrams. So this is the map of the United States, taken from a special satellite that looks down on the planet and has cameras that are more or less in the visible light range. They're not exactly visible, but close to visible. And obviously then it's a perfect camera to map the amount of light pollution because you're literally measuring how much light is going up into the sky. And so if you look at Missouri on the left, I've highlighted with the red box in the United States. Firstly, notice the big disparity between Western United, like halfway into Kansas, what happens on that side, halfway into Kansas once you cross, say, Topeka and Salina and places like that. And then look what's going on in the eastern part of the United States. And so then if you zoom into Missouri, again, you notice, St. Louis, Kansas City, Columbia, Jeff City. Down here is Springfield. And then if you zoom into the Springfield, Branson area, you see a big blob for Branson and huge blob for Springfield. And then the city of Ozark is somewhere over here. And you can see a couple of things. One is, yes, sure, you can do a bunch of stuff to curb your light pollution here, but something needs to be done about Springfield and kind of the sprawling suburbs as people start moving farther and farther out and using more and more outdoor lighting. And so this just kind of gives you perspective. One caveat here is that these data are dated. They are from about 2015 or 2016. And as you know, as you're well aware, it is around that time, give or take a couple of years, that lots of places moved from say, gas lamps or halogen lamps or sodium lamps to LEDs. And the LED spectral response, meaning the color of the LED light, is different than, say, a sodium light or a mercury lamp. And that effect is not quite caught by this because the data are dated. Does that make sense? It's like 5-6 year old data. So that's why ground-based measurements in real time are critical to see what LEDs are doing to the light pollution situation in and around, especially around cities. This is just a zoomed in version of that previous map. You can pick up some other main suburbs of Springfield, if you will, and there's Ozark. Okay, here's a bunch of cities, and we have a bunch of, not necessarily cities, but locations that we have are meters. These are called sky quality meters that are installed, SQM, that's what this SQM stands for. And these are the locations, and the type of site, is it on the ground, is it on the roof of a building, that sort of thing, and population. And then the science center, which is basically downtown St. Louis, obviously dominates, and everything is, is more or less, SEMO is in Cape Girardeau. And everything else is about 20-ish. These are all in Kirksville here. So if you look at Ozark, about 20,000 population a couple of years ago, then you can say Rolla, Kirksville, Overland Park is suburb of Kansas City. So that's a little bit of an exception because Rolla, Ozark, Kirksville are kind of isolated towns in themselves. There's no action around it, more or less. Ozark is kind of an exception because you have all the action from Springfield, but those are comparable towns. So we can look at those data and compare it with Ozark and see if Ozark's any better or any worse than what's going on in these other places. By the way, at any point, just stop me if you have questions, just speak up. I'm a professor, and so I'm kind of used to just keeping on talking. So make sure you stop me and say, oh, okay, hold on, you're running off here and I don't understand what you're saying. Okay, so I've highlighted Ozark. So this is another set of data, and these are literally data points we have gotten from these locations, essentially over a period of 1 year. Now, some of these went online, like the Science Center went online only in July or August last year. So obviously they have fewer amounts of data. But here's Ozark, and Ozark's yielded, because, Ozark we installed, late October, early November, something like that of 2019, along with Rolla, because I drove down to Rolla and then I drove down to Ozark. So you see the same, more or less the same amount of data points. Simultaneously, one of my collaborators installed it in some parts around St. Louis, like Hillsborough and MAC and SEMO and places like that. Now, these are locations at Truman, and so those are higher data because I've been collecting those data for a long time. Some of those data are obviously taken during daytime. They're useless to us. Then there's nighttime, but then the nighttime, if the moon is out, that's obviously going to bias your sky brightness, right? Because the moon's going to shine in the sky. And so that's going to cause problems. And so these are the data points that are useful to us for this particular purpose. And I would say Ozark is as good as any in terms of just the raw yield of data, has been great. And Cameron deserves a lot of credit for that because he's been very timely in checking the batteries and checking the sensor and replacing them. And I'm sure he's vented about the frustrations with the batteries because they're so unreliable in terms of how long they last. So he certainly deserves credit for that. Okay, what do the data look like? I'll just show you this plot real quick because this is how we look at data. This is how we analyze it. Is the y-axis here is the sky brightness. The larger the value, the darker the sky. The smaller the value, the brighter the sky. So during daytime, we basically get readings of 0. And this is just time on the x-axis here with 12 here in the middle, essentially midnight. So this is about evening time when it gets dark. This is about sunrise over here when it gets bright. And you see, it kind of rises as twilight fades away and gets darker. And then as twilight sets in, it falls off and gets brighter and brighter. Does the sky. You see, get these readings, for a little amount of time. And you see the sharp dip over here is because of clouds. And clouds are a good indicator of what your light pollution scene is. Because what's going to happen is if the light is just escaping into the sky, and it's not getting reflected back, then our sensor is not going to catch it. Because what our sensor catches is light that goes up into the sky, interacts with the atmosphere, and then bounces every which way. And some of it goes into our sensor. Does that make sense? So a lot of it just goes every which way. Just a little bit of it gets into your sensor. So that's an indicator of how bright the sky is. That's fair enough. But it doesn't completely capture it because a lot of light just gets lost into space, which that satellite catches, for example. But if there's a cloud cover over us, then that light is reflected back. And if there's a lot of light going up, a lot of light will be reflected back. And that's a perfect way to capture that amount of light pollution. So this dip is an indicator of that. The sky is really dark when there are no clouds. And as soon as the clouds rolled in, the sky got really bright. Again, the less the reading, the brighter the sky. And so this is just one data point. And I have now compared for that same night, okay, that was the 26th of December, 2019. I just picked that up because of this interesting thing where the clouds are rolling in for several locations, Hillsborough, Ozark, and I've arranged it in order of good, bad, and ugly, okay? So Hillsborough is really good, but it's a really small town. Ozark actually is decent, as we'll show in the next slide. And then these other towns are comparable or smaller than Ozark. Rolla is a little bigger. And you see Rolla, there's a significant dip, which tells us that in Rolla, the skies are comparable when it's not cloudy to, city of Ozark. But as soon as it gets cloudy, it gets significantly worse because the situation in Rolla in terms of light pollution is probably worse than Ozark. Okay, so that's how we quantify it. So this is just for one night. Now we have played this game and so there's a lot of data here. So don't worry about all the numbers. I'll just tell you the bottom line, which is for all that data and those number of data points I showed you, we took the average for each of the locations, calculated the errors, the standard deviations on our measurements, and I've tabulated here in order of terrible skies. Again, lower the reading on our meter, the brighter the skies, the larger, higher the reading, the darker the skies. And so no surprise, Science Center, essentially downtown St. Louis is the worst and gets successively better. Ozark falls somewhere in between, but none of these other places down here are smaller than the city of Ozark. So Rolla is here, Kansas City Overland is here. This one's the Kirksville site, which is comparable to Ozark. And then all of these are much smaller locations. And these last 2 or 3 are essentially in the middle of nowhere or way off out from the city. And so you expect that to be dark. So again, don't worry too much about these numbers. I'll show you a more qualitative way of looking at it. This is what I deal with is for science and all that kind of stuff, objective numbers. And this is the cloudless numbers. And then I also calculated the averages when it was cloudy. And the cloudy data we actually get from the airport, the Rolla Vichy airport. Because they have a weather station and those data are freely available online. So to see when clouds rolled in and that sort of thing. And you see that, we can then calculate the difference. And again, note the difference between, say, Kirksville, when it was clear against cloudy, and Rolla. And Rolla is much better than Kirksville, much better than, Ozark is much better than Kirksville. Ozark is much better than Rolla. And I think this number here, and I hope you appreciate what, the significance of that is, actually tells that Ozark is in a much better position than, say, Rolla or Kirksville is vis-a-vis light pollution, because there isn't that much light being reflected back by these clouds when it does get cloudy. Does that kind of make sense of how to look at it? So this number itself is significant, but I think this number is just as significant because it's telling you, yes, there is a problem to be fixed, but it is not as bad as some of these other locations. Here's a more qualitative way of looking at it, and I think this could be like the bottom line, is that if you go out into a beautiful dark night sky in summer and you look towards the south, you see this beautiful Milky Way, and I'm guessing at least some of you, if not all of you, at some point have seen it. And so how clearly can you see the Milky Way is a nice qualitative way of describing the levels of light pollution. And that's been kind of graded here, as you can see, on what's called this Bortle scale. That's a more popular way of qualitatively showing what light pollution is. And so I've labeled all these locations that we are tracking in terms of this Bortle scale. And Kansas City and St. Louis, no big surprise, is almost like a lost cause. I mean, light pollution there is essentially out of control. And so as you then drift towards better and better skies, as you move towards the right of this panel, the skies get better. And none of these in Missouri that we are looking at, or at least the data that I have showed you, qualify as really good skies, which you count that as 1, 2, and maybe 3. 1 and 2 are the excellent skies. You find them in the middle of nowhere, usually out in the desert somewhere in Arizona or New Mexico or parts of Texas, that sort of thing. There are places in Missouri that are comparable to this. And if anyone's interested, I'll talk about that later. But here's where Ozark is. Comparable to Kirksville, slightly better than Kirksville and Rolla, sure. But in this way of looking at it, not that better, not that great, I would say. There is room for improvement. I would say my aim in Kirksville, for example, is to move us from bottle 6 to bottle 5 over the next few years. And then hopefully people will see that that is beneficial to do. And then we can try to get to bottle 4. I think for population of towns of population of about 20, 25, 30,000, there's no reason for us to be up here in the 6, 7s, and 8s on this scale. We should be at least 5, if not 4, or maybe even 3 if you move slightly to the outskirts of town. So Thousand Hill State Parks is 5 miles outside of Kirksville. There's no reason it should be 4. It should be either 3 or 2. It's a state park. There are essentially no lights on the park premises itself. All that light is light leaking from the Kirksville light dome. And the same thing is happening at Ozark from, say, Springfield, and from Ozark to city of Ozark to the wilderness areas around. And we need to cut that. So I would say, let's see, what do I have here? Yeah, I think I'll kind of stop here. And I hope I've given you a flavor. I can show you, we have 1 year worth of data. I can keep showing you data till your brains get fried, because that's what's happening to me as we are writing this paper. And it's just so much data to just kind of analyze and look at that. I mean, that's great because, that's what we live for. But at some point you're like, okay, enough, let's just write this up and send it off. So I'll kind of leave this slide on and then invite questions or comments and any other information you need from me or from IDA Missouri. Just ask me, I'll take notes. And if I don't know the answer myself, I'll email back to Cameron and he can share it with you.
Well, Professor, several of us have been, very passionate about this for quite some time. So to
Yeah.
actually see that chart, that final chart,
Yeah.
is eye-opening.
Yeah.
Comparing us with, say, the farthest one on the right, or complete dark sky. So
Yeah.
it really is eye-opening. And I was
know.
really hoping to be able to see something like that so we can actually have a visual to say, okay, there is a concern here. We obviously are not as bad as downtown St. Louis, and I think everyone would recognize that going into this.
Yeah.
But we have room to move. There are steps that we probably need to take to move us more to the right into the 4s and the 3s. And if we ever get to a 1, probably is impossible, but certainly get away from the 6.
Yeah.
So I am so glad that you brought this to us tonight so we can actually see this for ourselves, exactly what the results of your tests have been. So I thank you.
Sure. And I would just say that the goal is definitely not to get to 1, because we do need outdoor lighting, right, for safety and to be able to see that sort of thing. And so one of the things that's another misconception people have is that dark sky advocates like me are, you just want to get rid of all the outdoor lighting. And that's not true. It's like, it depends on where you are, right? If you're in a city type situation or suburb type situation, or you're in a park, then you can aim for different things. And that's why I said, like, for places like Kirksville and city of Ozark, we should be definitely trying to get to 5. And if people really get on board, then a few years later, you can aim for 4. But certainly you shouldn't even aim for 2 and 1, because that would mean turning off the lights outdoors, which we don't want. We want them to be shielded and directed in the right direction.
Yes, John.
Can you talk a little bit about the numbers in Kelvin, 25,000, 2,500, 27, and
Yes,
how do you
so-
feel about going up the ladder toward a full spectrum? We tend to like I like an amber feel myself. I wonder how you felt about it.
Yes, so there are it depends on what level one is talking about, because there are subtleties there that you have to be concerned about, which is that generally speaking, broad brush, moving to amber colored lighting is good. Okay, so that's that. Let's get that out of the way. Though there is a slight problem with that with LED amber lighting, because some of the manufacturers who make these LED lights, even though the color of the LED appears kind of not quite fully amber, but it appears kind of yellowish, creamish, not quite like off-white yellow, maybe a hint of orange. Those LEDs, a lot of those LEDs also contain a significant amount of blue light. It's just that it's not as much as the yellow, yellow, slightly orange light. And so our eyes perceive only the yellow and orange because that's most of the light coming in. But still, there's a lot of blue light that is going into the environment as well. So yes, you want to move to and then the color is associated with something called the correlated color temperature, CCT, and you want to go definitely below 3000 K. So if you ever go to Walmart or Home Depot or Menards or whatever to buy light bulbs, even for your home, you'll see that it has a bunch of specs and whatnot, and one of that it says is the color temperature, CCT, which could be 4,000, 5,000, 6,000, which means the higher you go in temperature, the bluer the light is going to look. And the lower you go into the temperature, 3,000, 2,000, the more orange or red the light is going to look. And so, yes, I would say, yes, certainly move towards those lower temperature, the lower CCT lights, but be careful and do your due diligence to make sure that it's not also giving you a lot of blue light along with all the yellow orange light you're getting. And so that's kind of that red flag you have to worry about. And so what I'm doing right now is with the IDA, and the IDA is doing this, and I'm just kind of tagging on, is figuring out which vendors are giving us the lights that we want, which is a lot of amber colored light and minimum amounts, if not no amounts of blue and green and UV light. So it's a work in progress because the LED manufacturers insist, or when you contact them, they say that we are not making these amber colored LEDs because people want blue-white lights. And that obviously, they are business people, right? They want to make money. They want to sell their product. And so that's fair enough. We have to trust them. We have to take them on their word for that. And so it becomes our job, right? It becomes the job of people like you and me to inform the people that, you can still have a good amount of light. No one's talking about the intensity. You still can have as much light as you want in your yard or backyard or on your porch or whatever, or if you're a business, then in front of your business. No one's telling you not to do that. It's just that make sure the light doesn't go whichever way. So you need some sort of appropriate fixtures. And you also need lights that are more what I call warmer colors, even though the temperature is actually lower for these, for these colors. They're still called warmer colors like orange or amber colored lights. So it's a twofold thing: intensity and direction, and then the color.
Anyone else have any comments or questions for the professor?
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
I was just looking at the map in the beginning showing Springfield and how bright it is.
Yeah.
And I'm just curious to see or to know what's the effect it has on Ozark. For example, if we isolate Ozark and we are able to bring it down to, let's say, 4 or 3, will Springfield still overpower it and bring our brightness to 5 or 6?
That's a good question, and it depends on largely on what Springfield does moving ahead. This satellite map is, like I said, at least 5 years old, and my guess is the situation in some regards has gotten better, and in some regards has gotten worse. LED lights. One thing good about LED lights is, apart from the fact that it's energy efficient, is that it's very well directed. So LED light doesn't tend to go every which way. It goes in the, more or less in the direction you're pointing it at. And so if Springfield has installed LED lights, say their street lights or whatever outdoor lights the city administration is installing, because that in some sense that dominates, right? There are more street lights than any other single thing in any given town in terms of lighting. Then if it's well directed, then actually the amount of light pollution might have gone down. On the other hand, if they're using this blue-white light, it's still causing damage to the environment. Does that make sense? That you will underestimate the damage it's causing to the environment if you just focus on the intensity of the light. And so, we're waiting for the next data set, from this satellite map, from these satellites, because that will capture the change that has happened, not just in Springfield or Ozark, but across the world as people start moving towards LED lights. And so that would be, I think, that would answer your question once we get that information, is that what is Springfield doing? Are they using well-shielded lights, and what color light they're using? But you're right. I mean, generally speaking, given the proximity of Ozark to Springfield, you can do your thing. And I strongly encourage that. Because here's the way I look at it. Springfield's a big town. St. Louis is huge. Kansas City is huge. If you want to change a single light bulb in any of these places, you'll probably have to knock the doors of like 10 different entities, and they'll fight with each other as to who's going to pay for it, and this, that, and the other. And, nobody knows anybody else, or they know each other just enough to hate each other. You know what I mean? Like, so in big towns and cities, it's going to be hard. And so the way I'm looking at it is, how do we solve this over the next 5 years, 10 years, 100 years? At least how do we stop the increase of light pollution? Is we start small. We start with the smaller towns and convince others that, see, we can make this work. As a result, we can save money, we can enhance the beauty of our night skies, and in the long run, it's beneficial. Like, a lot of places in Ozark, in Kirksville, we have hunting going on around town. And just imagine, if the light pollution keeps on increasing, what's going to happen to the deer? What's going to happen to all the game? They react to this, right? Why would the deer go where there's lots of lights? It won't. It will go farther and farther deeper, and people will stop coming to your, to hunt around your town and stay overnight. If there's nothing to be gained by staying overnight, you can't see the stars, you can't get good game. Why would anybody stay overnight? So my point is that even though, yes, it may look like, oh, if Springfield doesn't do anything, whatever we do doesn't make as much of a difference. That's how we start.
Okay, anyone else have any questions for the professor? Well, sir, thank you. We appreciate your time. We look forward to working with you in the future.
Sure. I'll be happy to share whatever I've learned, and keep fighting away the questions. Just pass it along to Cameron, and he can pass it along to me. I'll just quickly add that Cameron did send me the ordinance that you guys are drafting, and I sent it to a couple of IDA members who work on this sort of thing, who know more about that, that sort of thing than I do. And they have sent me a few comments. I'm waiting for another person to get back to me, and I'll forward those comments to Cameron, and then hopefully that is useful to you all.
Great. Thank you for doing that.
All right. Take care, everyone. Thanks for having me.
Thank you again.
Bye-bye. Bye, Cameron.
Okay.
Bye.
Next up on the agenda is the unfinished business, which there is none. And we'll jump right into new business. Letter A. It's a zoning amendment 2021-480. The owner is DNR Equity Investments, LLC, located at 403 to 405 South 9th Street. Current zoning is R1A, single family estate. Proposed R1C, single family district. Mr. Smith.
Yes, this zoning amendment is to rezone existing parcel of residential land from R1A to R1C. The zoning amendment request does conform to the comprehensive plan and the surrounding uses of that neighborhood. The existing property is considered a legal non-conforming property, meaning that there are two residential dwelling units on one parcel of land. The request will allow this property to be divided. The R1C property square footage would allow that division of the property to bring this property into compliance of the zoning ordinances, which is what the property owners are interested in. Right now, staff is working on an administrative lot split with the owners to divide that property. Based on the existing condition of a non-conforming and bringing this in conforming in the surrounding uses, staff is in support of and recommend approval of this application.
Thank you, sir. Is the applicant with us tonight?
I believe they are.
Yes, yes, we are.
Okay, is there anything that you'd like to add to what Mr. Smith had to say?
No, he said it very well.
Okay, in that case, I will open this up for the public. Is there anyone from the public that would care to chime in a positive way? Anyone from the public care to chime in from a negative way?
Is anyone here to talk about this application?
What is R1C?
Is there anyone there that wants to speak to this, Megan?
No, I don't believe so. We have one person who may be, but
No.
no. Okay.
No.
we're good.
Okay, then I'll close the public hearing, turn over to the commission for comments. Mr. Dillon.
Hey, Cameron, can you speak a little bit about how the review of the trail, the proposed trail, the alignment and easements, how do you make sure that that is protected in case there's such an emphasis now on trails around this part of the world and so much, and on the surveys, a lot of our citizens really wanted to make sure that happened. So how do you keep looking at, there are a number of properties that are coming up tonight where trails are proposed. Can you talk just a little bit about how you would look at that and how you would continue to protect that easement?
Yes, when you look at your packet, you'll notice that there's a section in there that talks about the trail and shows the proposed, what we call the OTO, Ozark Transportation Organization alignment that's been master planned. During the zoning or annexation applications, we just note that those are there, but once they get to a platting of property or development of property or lot split of property, that's when staff will review those for those alignments to see where it's appropriately to be placed. Again, that alignment that's shown in the packet or on our master plan is somewhat schematic. Once we know more details about the property and application, then we kind of fine tune and evaluate that location. In this particular application, it is in the southwest corner. It slightly clips the corner of this property. There's a floodplain and drainage unit that runs through there. So when staff is looking at this administrative lot split on this application, would evaluate the location of that easement and see if it's something we need to consider on this parcel or maybe the parcel to the west beside it. So we kind of just evaluate the existing site amenities or features of the property to determine what's the best place to go with the trail easement.
Okay, anyone else, commissioners, comments? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion.
I move to accept as written.
I have a motion on the floor to accept by Commissioner Garrison. Do I have a second?
Second that.
Second by Commissioner Hutchinson to approve the zoning amendment 2021-480, owner of DNR Equity LLC, location 403-405 South 9th Street, current R1A, proposed R1C. Roll call vote, please.
Gerald McGuire. You're muted.
Sorry about that. Aye.
Jean Ann Hutchinson.
Aye.
Jeff Garrison.
Aye.
John Dillon.
Aye.
Wim Oaks.
Aye.
Alexei Pavlov.
Aye.
Pete Renfro.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously.
Good deal. Thank you all. Thank you for the applicant for coming in tonight. Okay, next up, zoning amendment 2021-481. The owner is Bernie Talbot and Family Revocable Interviews Trust, dated 5/27/1992. Located is 1216 East Highway NN, current zoning C2, proposed zoning R1C. Mr. Smith.
Yes, on this zoning amendment, it'll be similar applications on the following two, but this zoning amendment is to rezone the existing property. It is a residential use property that is zoned C2 commercial. The request is to rezone that back to a residential zoning of R1C, which is the same residential zoning of the surrounding subdivision that it lies within. This This again is a legal non-conforming property. It was zoned commercial several years back, but the actual use of that property is still being utilized as residential property. The property has been held in a trust, and the desire is to sell off the parcels of land or the property. And because of the zoning and legal non-conforming, that's causing some concerns and issues on selling that property. The request will bring these properties back into compliance with the zoning ordinance and the comprehensive plan as well. And based on staff's findings in the report, staff did recommend approval of rezoning the commercial back to a residential zoning district.
Thank you. Is the applicant or a representative here tonight?
Yes,
Is there anything that you care to add to what Mr. Smith had to say?
I do not have anything to add.
Okay, very good. I will open this up to the public. Is there anyone there that would care to comment on this, either in a positive or in a negative way?
I live at,
Hold on. We do have some in the audience. I'm going to switch the screen over and they can come up to the microphone and state their name and address for the record so we can get that.
okay,
Just stand on the X there.
I live at 1216.
Ma'am, I need your name and address, please.
My
She-
name, my
If you
name
wanna-
is Norma Hensley, and I live at 1216 East NN, which is the property that we're talking about. And I've lived there for quite a while, and the property, as soon as things go through, will be mine. And I just think it should be back in residential instead of commercial for a lot of reasons. So that's all I have to say.
Very good. Thank you for that. Is there anyone else that care to speak on this?
Yes, we have another one.
Please come forward. Name and address to Megan, please.
Yes, my name is Mary Coughlin, and I live at 5912 North 13th Avenue, the subdivision called the Rivers. And I just want to say my thank you to the planning and zoning for taking this from a commercial to a residential, as several homeowners within the Rivers and Waterford were very concerned that at some point it would go commercial. So we're very grateful that it's turning, will permanently become a residential area. So and because, and hopefully someday we would like to see it 45 miles an hour, especially before it takes that curve to the north as it travels east and then goes north. So, but I just wanted to thank you all. And I'm very positive about this. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for coming forward tonight. Anyone else? Okay, I'll close the public hearing and turn it over to the commission. Comments, questions for either the applicant or for Mr. Smith? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion. Yes, John.
I move that we approve zoning amendment 2021-481.
Very good. We have a motion on the floor to approve zoning amendment 2021-481. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
We have a second by Commissioner McGuire to approve zoning amendment 2021-481. The owner is Bernie E. Talbot family, located at 1216 East State Highway NN, current C2, proposed R1C. Roll call vote, please.
Darryl McGuire,
Aye.
Jean Ann Hutchinson,
Aye.
Jeff Garrison,
Aye.
John Dillon,
Aye.
Wim Oaks,
Aye.
Alexi Pavlov,
Aye.
Pete Grenville.
Aye.
I have it.
Deal. Thank you all very much. Okay, next up is letter C, zoning amendment 2021-482. Owner is the Bernie E. Talbot family, currently at 258 East State Highway NN, current zoning C2, proposed R1C. Mr. Smith.
Yes, similar to the application you guys just approved, this is another property within that subdivision that's zone C2 commercial. The request is to zone this back to an R1C residential parcel, which is, again, is the same zoning district within the existing subdivision. The property is a legal non-conforming, and by doing this, it brings it back into conformance with the ordinances and comprehensive plan. Staff does recommend approval.
Thank you. Does the applicant have anything to add to this one?
I do not.
Okay, thank you very much. I'll open it up for public. Is there anyone from the public that would like to speak on this amendment?
No one in the audience.
And I will close the public hearing and turn it over to the commission. Any comments, questions? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion that we approve zoning amendment 482.
Thank you, Daryl. We have a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
Second.
Got a motion to approve and a second by Commissioner Garrison to approve the zoning amendment 2021-482, owner Bertie E. Talbot family, located at 258 East Highway NN, current C2, proposed R1C. Roll call vote, please.
Daryl McGuire,
Aye.
Ann Hutchinson,
Aye.
Jeff Garrison,
Aye.
John Dillon,
Aye.
Wim Oaks,
Aye.
Alexi Pavlov,
Aye.
Pete Grinbrook.
Aye.
Guys have it, the motion passes unanimously.
Very good. Thank you all very much. Okay, next up, letter D, zoning amendment 2021-483, owner Bernie E. Talbot family, located at 1306 East State Highway NN. Current zoning is C2, proposed R1C. Mr. Smith.
Yes, this is the last of the 3 parcels that have requested zoning from C2 to R1C. Again, it's a legal non-conforming zoning that this will bring it into conformance. Same as the notifications noted before on the other 2 applications. Staff does recommend approval of this application as well.
Very good. Thank you. Applicant have anything to add?
No.
Thank you very much. I'll open up the public hearing, assuming I'll close the public hearing.
No one in the
commission for comments. Seeing none, I would entertain a motion.
I move that we accept amendment 483.
We have a motion on the floor to accept amendment 483 by Commissioner Hutchinson. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second from Commissioner Dillon to approve the zoning amendment 2021-483. The owner Bernie E. Talbot family, located 1306 East State Highway NN, current C2, proposed R1C. Roll call vote, please.
Daryl McGuire,
Aye.
Jean Ann Hutchinson,
Aye.
Jeff Garrison,
Aye.
John Dillon,
Aye.
Wim Oaks,
Aye.
Alexi Pavlov,
Aye.
and Pete Grinbrook.
Aye.
Guys have the motion passes unanimously.
Very good. Thank you all very much. Next up, letter E, annexation 2021-484, owner Todd and Tina Yernick, location 5147 East, check that, North Pheasant Road and parcel east of 5174 North Pheasant Road. Mr. Smith.
Yes, the application is for the annexation of 2 parcels of land lying next to each other. They're existing in the county, and the zoning of those are noted as a residential in the agriculture. Upon annexation, the applicant will make requests for the zoning, which is following this application. Staff has reviewed the annexation and confirmed it is compact contiguous and does meet the intent of the comprehensive plan. There is adequate utility capacities to serve any additional development or development of this property, assuming appropriate infrastructure improvements are made, but there is capacity to serve the property. Based on the staff's report and findings, staff does recommend approval of the annexation.
Thank you, sir. Is the applicant with us tonight? Is there,
Yes.
is there anything that you care to add to this, to Mr. Smith's comments, Mr. Bodine?
I just want to extend our appreciation to staff The addition or the annexation, if it were to pass, would also act as a portion of what is currently Northtown Park, which is the 40-acre development to the east. This would provide a much needed good secondary access out of that 40 acres to North Pheasant Run, which was a part of the contention with the 40 acres originally, especially with the neighborhood to the north, Grand Haven. Other than that, no, I really don't have much to add.
Thank you, sir. I will open up the public hearing portion of this. Is there anyone here with us tonight to speak in favor of this? Is there anyone here to speak in opposition to this?
Well, this is Nathan McCartney. We don't know whether we should speak on behalf of this one or on the change to the R1C. I believe it's coming up in the future. But the neighborhood over here at Pear Tree and Pheasant Run has some objections about kind of the whole plan layout as a whole.
Yes, sir. But when we're talking about the annexation of the piece of property, do you have any comments or questions about that specifically?
No.
Okay. No. Okay. Yeah, yes, sir. Mr. Keaton, is that you?
Introduce yourself.
Hinton Wright.
And your address, please?
4996 North Pheasant Drive.
Okay, go right ahead, sir.
The road gets changed from, I have, along with my immediate neighbor and the 5174 property, a shared water well. It is, the well itself is physically located on that lot. I would like discussion and clarification of what the impact would be on our properties that are in the county versus that lot being brought into the city, and the effect on easements and such.
Mr. Smith?
Yeah, it was cutting out a little bit, but as far as the impacts of their existing wells, any development in the city would be required to connect to municipal water and sewer services. So there will not be additional wells or septic tanks allowed in city property.
I'm speaking in regards to the well that is currently located on that property that is serving people in the county.
I'm not aware of that. I'll let the applicant representative address any of the comments there.
Mr. Bodine?
I apologize. To be quite honest, I need to research the location of that well, but it wouldn't be our intent to cut anybody off from water if there's an existing well there. I don't see why we couldn't, if there's no requirement by the city to cap that well could stay in service to the people outside of the city.
That's exactly the kind of concern I have, that the city is going to apply regulations to that well that is because of its physical location, as opposed to the nature of the people that are being served by it.
Do you know the actual location of the well on that lot?
Physically, yes. It's located about 5 feet off of the south border of the Pheasant Drive facing lot, about halfway back through the depth of the lot.
I think I can speak for the owner, and I believe the owner might be on the call also if he'd want to chime in, but I don't, from a development point of view, we wouldn't have any interest in shutting that off.
Yeah, Dave, I'm here. I'm not sure if my camera's working, but I'm here. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Yeah. No, it would not be our intent to eliminate that well. You know, if the city had some requirement, you know, we would do something as maybe, you know, not annex that portion in, rework that property line, or whatever we had to do to keep that well in service for the folks in the county. If the city didn't have a problem with it being where it's located and still feeding the folks into the county, that would be our choice, of course.
And I believe there's county filings that list the owner of the property at 5174 as a 1/3 owner of that well. And I'd like to know what would be proposed to do with that legal barrier.
Well, I'm not sure that I understand that there is a legal barrier there. But again, if the well can stay in its location and stay intact and still feed the property owners within the county, that's exactly what we would do.
Mr. Smith, do you have any comments to this at all?
Yeah, I think definitely it's something we would want to further investigate during the development or plating of that property. As far as the annexation and zoning, I'm not sure it's something that we really need to consider this evening. However, if there is an existing well determined to be on this property, I suspect, and I can confirm with Public Works, that it's probably wise to draft some kind of easement around that well to preserve that, to serve those properties in the county, since they are in the county. However, if it does serve the existing residents we're annexing in, that residence would now be served by a public water system. If the county residents has a desire to connect to city services, that's something we could probably consider and review by the Public Works Director. However, I imagine at this time, we just determine a way to plat, or they could plat an easement to preserve that existing well to serve those residents.
So that would have the effect, if I'm understanding, of taking a well that was set up to serve 3 residences and forcing 2 of the owners to cover 100% of the cost of it, where right now the 2 cover only 1/3 each, with 1/3 of it to Mr. Urak.
To answer that question, if the cost is electric bill, I'm not sure what that is, or maintenance of that well.
Electric and maintenance.
Essentially, that's an agreement you'd have to work out with the property owners. That's not something that the city would necessarily be involved with. But if the existing house is taken off that well, I don't know. I mean, I don't definitely have an answer for that, but that's something you'd have to negotiate with that the property owner of that where that well occurs.
Sir, is there anything else you care to add? Any questions? Okay, is there anyone else that would like to comment on this?
I will. My name is John Turner. Can you hear me?
Yes.
And I live at 1595 East Lake Crest Drive. And I'm sort of like the folks over there on Pear Tree that we can see down there. They don't know where to speak. So I'm going to go ahead and speak here, because I think some of this information is information that you need to hear before you annex this property into the city, because I would hate for you to annex something in or make a recommendation to annex something in, and then you find out some information that I would have provided that like I said, so I want to go ahead and provide it here. I'd asked earlier, as far as the city folks, if it was possible for me to share an image during this. Is that possible for me to share an image so I can sort of show you the lay of the land?
Sure. The only thing I would ask is that, is the information that you're about to talk about, is it directly related to the annexation of this property this evening?
Well, I think it is. I think it discusses the borderline, and I'm by your action, all of a sudden I'm going to be neighboring. I'm going to be your next door neighbor in the city of Ozark if you annex this property.
Fine. I'm not opposed to having him show that a slide.
Okay, so I know somebody's going to have to give me permission to share.
Give me just 1 second.
And by the way, I've also taken some movies and things like that. And I don't know if that's, I'm assuming that would be something that would be more appropriate when we start talking about the platting process down the road. But we all of us that live in this neighborhood, including Kenton and Ann, and well, even we refer to this property that we're talking about right now as the Ted Nichols property. Ted knows all about this too, as far as those of us in this neighborhood, we know about the issues related to that piece of property that currently you're getting ready to try to annex here.
And yes, sir, I did hear that there was a possible video that wanted to be shown tonight, and I, although I do appreciate the effort and the information, there's a process that you know of, you've been through it before, that we have to follow, and of course that would probably fall under the the plating portion of it. So I
Yeah.
would.
Well, like I
encourage
said,
you to go back.
just if I can show the map to sort of show where we're at and how this relates to us as neighbors.
You should be able to share your screen.
I still don't see it up there. There's typically on the bottom bar there on Zoom, you'll have the
Should be where you can share.
okay. Well, I don't see that I can, but that's okay. I'll talk without it, and just so that I can talk through the geography of the land there and these particular issues is that I do want to speak against annexing this property into the city of Ozark. And again, my name is John Turner. And if you visualize this piece of property that runs from Pheasant back to this 41 acre addition that you're going to be talking about next, that strip of land there is immediately behind my house. I'm on the southern border. For those of you that know that area, I am on the east side of the dry lake that used to be the lake of Lake Crest Drive. And so I'm right there on the east border. So you have the Smiths on the west side of the lake, and I'm on the east side of the lake. And obviously all of this information all of that water that comes, for example, from up there at Grand Haven comes through the property that you're going to be talking about next, and then it comes through this property that's right behind my property. Okay. The issue that I have related to this, and I realize that this is something that would be dealing with platting and these other issues, is that that land is a natural and historic path of water for that whole area to the east of that property and up the hill all the way to Grand Haven. Even your documents that have been provided to you and your paperwork that you've received to consider this matter talks about the historic and the natural path of water that comes through that piece of land that is right behind us. To be candid with you, years ago, I thought about buying that land away from Ted Nichols, but I thought, how in the world could you ever develop property? Because it's underwater so much of the time of the year. And all of that water that comes off this land that you're getting ready to annex comes directly onto my property. And so any action that you take here is going to alter the natural and historic path of that water from that site. And not only will it force more water onto my property because of this development that you're going to do, it's going to absorb less water into the ground, but also you're diverting the natural path of that water that comes from up farther up on the hill all the way down into that area. With the development of these additional lots on the site and the construction of homes and roads and other construction, you're going to greatly reduce the natural water absorption, and you're going to force additional water onto my property. Actions that have been taken recently related to planning and construction have harmed my home and my neighborhood. The Grand Haven subdivision specifically, when it was developed and constructed, has pushed more water onto this land, and it's coming directly through this land that you're getting ready to try to annex into it. And when Grand Haven is pushing all that water, and for those of you that, again, this would have been something where it would be helpful if I could visualize it for you, that it all goes into that retention basin up there at Grand Haven, and then it all comes into that natural water area that's on that next piece of land you're going to be talking about, the 41 acres there. It goes into a natural waterway and absorbs into the land, and then it eventually comes down through this property that we're talking about now, and then it dumps on into my land. Okay, so whenever you start constructing this, building roads, diverting water in different ways, specifically that all pushes right onto my property, especially during flooding areas. When after that water runs through that natural wetland, which again is and we're talking about this land that you're talking about right now. When that water runs onto that natural wetland that's behind my home on that property, that absorbs some of that water that comes into the dry lake there at Lake Crest Drive. And I've submitted some of the pictures, and we can look at that later when we get down the road in future meetings. But that water comes up scary high now. For those of you that know Lake Crest Drive, that water comes all the way to the top of the dam now that this South Haven or this Grand Haven subdivision has. I've lived here for over 10 years. Our neighbors, the Schmitz, have lived here for 30. And we've never had water that comes up that high. Even retaining walls that has historically held the water into the lake off of my property, since the Grand Haven addition, now it tops that easily by 10 or 15 feet. And so that water runs directly onto my property. My home at 1595 Lake Crest Drive has been here about 35 years now. In fact, I think we're the oldest home on Lake Crest Drive. Water has never entered my basement ever in that entire time. And with the completion of the Grand Haven addition, now that water runs through this property and within 15 feet of my basement. Before, it never got within 30, 50 feet of my basement. Now it gets within 15 feet of my basement. And if we add another foot of elevation, it will be in my basement. And again, this home has been here for almost 40 years and has never had water in the basement. The retaining walls that are along my property that separate me from the lake used to never be topped. Now they're constantly topped with water that comes over the top of that retaining wall and comes back into my yard. And again, I've supplied you with pictures and videos where you can see that. We regret that we were not more vocal when you all annexed in Grand Haven, the Grand Haven addition at the time. To be honest with you, we had no idea how it would significantly impact our property. But as we say, that's water under the bridge now. And so now we're looking here at annexing this piece of property behind me into the community. And again, your next step as far as to go through and talk about changing the size of the lots. So we didn't object at Grand Haven, and it's darn near water in our house now. Okay. And so we're not going to let that happen again. We'll be very vocal about this. You're going to remove the natural absorption of land. You're going to build homes, small lots back there. So we're going to have less water come in. And these smaller lots will reduce the amount of water that's being absorbed. You're redirecting it away from the natural and historic wetlands, and we'll push more land on or water onto our property. And my family urges you to not annex this property into the city, and that you reject this proposal. And this action that's taken by these land developers is sort of like flipping a rock off the top of the building and not being concerned about where that rock lands on the folks below. Is that everybody, all these developments that are happening upstream, okay, at Grand Haven, and then the piece of land that you're going to be talking about here in a little while on the 41 acres, and then through this piece of land that's right behind me, those people are throwing rocks off the top of that building, and it's landing on us folks down here. And like I said, we're now within 15 feet of our basement being flooded when it gets to when we get water up, and that's 2 or 3 times a year down here. So we know that you're just talking about annexation. We know that coming up next is going to be the zoning amendment and talking about lot sizes, but we just want to make sure that you know that what you're doing in the city of Ozark is impacting your neighbors here in the county. And we hope that you'll be good neighbors, and that know that this is a very established area out here. Many of us have lived here for many, many years. And just like we have here with Kenton and Ann, they don't know if the well's going to be there. And then the people that own the property didn't even know the well was there. There's a lot of complexities in this neighborhood that have been resolved over the last 40 and 50 years out here. And we think this is a complication that the city of Ozark probably doesn't want to get in. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Mr. Turner. I appreciate it. Obviously, you've done a tremendous amount of research, and thank you for your information. Anyone else care to speak on this?
Yes, we have someone here in the audience.
Okay, please step forward and give your name and address to Megan, please.
Okay, my name is Mary Coughlin, and I live at 5912 North 13th Avenue in the Rivers. And I just wanted to say thank you to Mr. Turner for this important information. I have only lived here in Ozark for a little over a year now, although I've wanted to live here for many years. And I love this little town and the area around it. And I just want it to stay beautiful and rural. And I know we're attracting a lot of development. Another thing, there is the pending sale of that 57, I think, 0.8 acres at the corner of Dublin Highway and Melton, which I believe will adjoin Grand Haven and perhaps North Park, that development. So that, again, is something to be considered. So it's there's so many different variables in this, but I thank you for your wisdom and for your consideration of all these things. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. We appreciate you coming forward. Anyone else?
Yes, I would like to speak on behalf of the, as one speaker, on behalf of Pear Tree Drive.
I need you to please give your name and address to Megan, please.
My name is Sherry Ballard, and I live.
Oh, I should have, pardon me for interrupting. I should have made this point in the very beginning. We need to limit our comments to 5 minutes. So if you, please feel free to speak on anything you'd like to speak of. And for the next 5 minutes, please go right ahead.
My name is Sherry Ballard, and I'm at 1626 East Pear Tree Drive. I don't know if you can see, I think our whole neighborhood is here in my house right now because we all do have concerns about this. And quite honestly, we agree with John that spoke earlier. We've got some pictures that I would actually like to share on the screen if possible. Pictures that I just took this morning, I might add.
Okay, so we're seeing a photo.
You're seeing the photo? Okay. This photo is actually a picture of the retention area there at Grand Haven. It is just to the, kind of to the north of us. And you can see how the water flows from that retention area and comes out into the field there. Wait, it's not. Let me go to the next. Okay. And it just flows through the through that into the field. That field, that 40 acres that they're wanting to develop, that's a picture you can see. That's the flooding from that retention center, which is in Grand Haven. And basically what happens is that's my yard right there. That's just from the rain that we all know happened overnight and to this morning. And it flows back into the field. Let me see if I can get it back. Okay. That's not it, obviously, but it flows back into that field just behind my home that you're wanting to annex in. And it collects there. So our concern is the flooding also. I mean, we all know that when you do a land cover change, it results in increased flood frequency and severity. So obviously what was put in at Grand Haven wasn't done correctly. And from the last meeting that we attended for annexing this 40 acres in, we know that the people of Grand Haven have tried to fix that retention center, and it still obviously it has not worked. So we have grave concern with this being annexed into into the city, and the development that they want to do on that 40 acres and decreasing it from 15,000 to 10,000. That's more rooftops, more flooding. So we have spoken with an attorney. We are continuing to speak to an attorney. I've done some research on the civil law rule, which says that no one has the right to alter drainage. And we feel like the city, the developer are all responsible for the flooding that we see from Grand Haven, because the city permitted that new construction without requiring drainage facilities adequate enough to accommodate increased surface water runoff. So our neighborhood has been speaking with an attorney. So, and like I said, we will continue to do that because this is a grave concern for all of us.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. If you could click off your photo, please.
Yeah, we're trying.
I'm trying to edit this.
There you go. Thank you so much. Anyone else care to speak on this? Okay, then I will close the public hearing and turn it over to the commission and remind the commission that our role tonight is to annex this piece of property. The issues of stormwater and others will come back to us during the plating phase, whenever that comes back. So the discussion from a commissioner standpoint tonight is strictly with regards to annexation. So I will turn it back over to you. I'm not sure I closed the public hearing, but so I'll say it again. If I didn't, I did close it. So I'll turn it over to the commission for comments. Mr. McGuire.
Yeah, this is to Cameron. Cameron, were you aware of all the drainage problems out there, Grain Heaven, and the ones these folks are referring to?
They did. They shared the videos and photos, and yes, to answer the question, the city and Public Works primarily is aware of the drainage that flows through there, as we investigated that the last time the zoning came through. Definitely is something that the engineers are evaluating with the development of the original 41 acres that was annexed in a zone. That's something they are evaluating the drainage through that area, looking at the watersheds from off-site coming through this property, and how they're releasing the water developed from their property to flow onto the southwest. So yes, we are aware that there is a drainage pattern through there. However, the details of how to evaluate that is something that they're looking at the plating and design stage.
And we do have ways that we can hold engineers liable for their mistakes if they do make a mistake in like something like this. I'm not saying they did, but I'm just saying we do have a recourse with the engineers. Is that not right?
To answer the question about how we hold them liable, I don't know if I have a clear answer on what that is, but the engineers do have to evaluate the existing conditions of the site and their prior or post development and after development, how they evaluate that. I do know that the stipulations do require not to release any more water that was released off that property.
The way I understand it, they put their license at jeopardy if they mess up very often.
Yeah, yes, and that's what I was getting to, is that as they evaluate that, they've got to confirm and conform that they're not releasing any more water. And by doing that stormwater design, that stormwater report evaluation, they are signing and sealing a document confirming that they're complying with any state, federal, or local jurisdiction and codes.
Thank you.
Anyone else, commissioners? Mr. Garrison.
My main concern at the moment is specifically towards the annexation of the Pheasant Road property prior to confirmation of this well issue being properly, legally, whatever you want to refer to it as. I mean, I hear a lot of suppositions of we think this will happen. We have no intent of doing this or that. But I would think something needs to be confirmed for these people to where there's no what ifs with this well issue. I don't know if anybody, Cameron, wants to speak to that or someone else. I'm just concerned about that for those folks.
Yeah, I can add to that. Just keep in mind, this is an annexation application. Nothing more. This application is not even a zoning request, development request, anything. They're just annexing the property into the city. The only thing the city would have is the stipulations of the existing resident structure that would be in the city now and being connected to the city's services. Generally, that connection is required if a well is failing. In a lot of cases on these existing systems out there, if they're not making any improvements, changing anything, if they're not having well issues, then they would remain to function as they are today until such time their well is failing. Now, if it's property in the county, back to kind of what I was stating before, that's something that's just got to be evaluated amongst the property owners in that agreement that well was set up. Not sure how that was set up and not determined, or how it was determined on the ownership of that well. The city wouldn't have any jurisdiction over the properties in the county.
Anyone else?
I'm sorry, I need to follow up. We don't have any jurisdiction on anything in the county. I understand that, but if we annex the property, sounds like to me the well goes with it. So what kind of legal right do the county people that's getting service from that city well that's on city property how is that controlled or not controlled?
That's what I was stating. In that case, they'd probably have to determine if there's an existing easement on that well. It seems like with that well set up, the agreement would have had some form of easement to confirm that there is a legal right to that well for those 3 parcels. The right would be that if this is annexed in and they pursue any kind of development plating, then chances are they'll need a plat and easement to confirm that well can service those properties in the county.
And answer your question, Mr. Garrison?
I'm gonna have to mull it over for a minute.
I'll be fine.
I'm trying to get there.
While Mr. Garrison is mulling, anyone else have any comments on this with regard to the annexation?
The question. So in this case, where we either vote to recommend the annexation or not to recommend the annexation, there are no stipulations that we can make or postpone it to the next meeting. How to settle this well question and have an agreement drawn up. Is that correct?
Mr. Smith?
I lost some of the sound there for a minute, but to answer the question, I think what it is yes, the commission is to either recommend to the Board of Aldermen approval or denial this annexation application. With that recommendation, there could be a requirement placed on that recommendation that the board evaluate the well for further investigations of the authority or rights to that well.
Jean-Ann? Okay, Jeff, anything else to add? Oh, I'm sorry, Jean-Ann, you came back on. Anything else? Okay. All right, anyone else? Okay, then I would entertain a motion. Go ahead, Jeff.
I motion the passing of the annexation 484 with the stipulation that the well agreement be confirmed for the county ownership of the share of the well. I'm sure I'm not saying that right, but you guys can help me with the verbiage.
Okay, so we have a motion on the floor to approve with the stipulation of ensuring that the well agreement has been investigated and confirmed with,
Yes.
with an easement, with
whatever, with the easement or whatever has to happen to ensure service to the other 2 parties that are still in the county. That's
okay.
a lot of words.
Okay, so, okay, then let's just go with that. We have a motion on the floor to approve with that stipulation. Do I have a second?
Chuck, could you read the stipulation again, please?
Stipulation is the passing of a well agreement with the county residents, that there will be an easement for the well. Is that correct? Is that what you got out of that, Cameron?
That's what I'm understanding.
So that the well itself stays with the county residents. Is that right, Jeff? Okay. Everybody get that okay? If so, I'll need a second. Or you can turn this down and go back to the original, however you want to do it. Daryl?
I'll second.
You'll second it with the stipulation?
Yes,
Okay, please state so, please.
I second it with the stipulations that Jeff added to it.
All right, so we have a motion to approve with the stipulation of ensuring that the agreement, that there will be an easement for the county folks that have their well there at the annexation 2021, number 484, Todd and Tina Yernick at 5174 North Pheasant Road and Parcel Road East, 5174 North Pheasant Road. Roll call vote, please. And Megan, before you start, did you get the motion and the stipulation okay?
Yes.
Okay, then go right ahead with the roll call vote.
Daryl McGuire,
Aye.
Jean Ann Hudson,
Aye.
Jeff Garrison,
Aye.
John Dillon, William Coates,
Aye.
Alexei Pavlov,
Aye.
Keith Renfro.
Aye.
Guys have it, the motion carries.
All right, thank you. Next up is the zoning amendment for 2021-485. Todd and Tina Yernak, location 5174 North Pheasant. The proposed is R1C, single family district. Mr. Smith.
Yes, the application for the zoning amendment to rezone the property or to place the zoning on the property upon approval of the annexation following the previous application. This zoning amendment would be the same amendment as the following application as well, but we'll address that one at the time. The existing zoning is outside the city because of the lack of annexation, but once annexed, it'll come into the city as the existing county zoning. The applicant is requesting to zone the property R1C, single family residential. The zoning amendment would conform, or the zoning request would conform to the comprehensive plan and the surrounding neighborhood and subdivisions in the city. Based on the annexation application and the surrounding uses, staff doesn't have any concerns in servicing the site upon at the time development would be considered, reviewed, and evaluated for conformance of that, and then the utility or existing infrastructure services being extended to serve that property. Based on the staff's report and the application and what we received and investigated, the staff does recommend approval.
All right, good deal. Applicant, care to add anything to what Mr. Smith had to say, please?
Yes, thanks. Real briefly, I know we're not going to get close to the specifics of the stormwater. I know that's been mentioned many times before. A couple of things that I will mention real quick. The site is downstream from anything on Pear Tree. We're not going to drain anything back to Pear Tree. Detention will be put on this site that will meet the City of Ozark's requirements to be to discharge less, equal to or less than what's discharging from this property now. I've also heard the subdivision to the north. I'm sorry, Grand Haven Estates. I've heard that referred to as a retention pond. From a civil engineering aspect, let me assure everyone that that in no way acts as a retention pond, and that is the cause of a lot of the issues that we've tried to alleviate here. Water from Grand Haven goes into the lake at the same rate that it goes out of the lake. There's no reduction to that outlet structure. I think that's the cause of a lot of the issues. It's a very, very easy fix if someone were to push that issue. But I hope that we're not held to an issue that is not our making. In other words, there are issues off of our site that are contributing to everyone's problems, and will be contributing to our problems as well. And we'd like to team up to fix those. I know the Grubauer property is soon going to be in development. That engineer has met with me about fixing those problems as well, and teaming up on some of those issues. But that's all I have. I'm more than happy to address any questions from anything that may come up in comments.
Thank you, Mr. Bodine. Okay, I will open this up to the public and ask if there's anyone here to speak in favor of this. I will ask in kind if there's anyone here to speak in opposition to this.
Do you want to speak to this application? No one in the audience. There may be some on the Zoom.
Okay, anyone on the Zoom care to speak to the zoning of R1C?
Can you hear me?
Who's speaking?
This is Brent Richards, 1486 East Pear Tree Drive. It's
okay, so you have 5 minutes. Go right ahead.
Okay. I want to know, basically, has anybody considered the traffic issues that this is going to be creating in this area at the junction of NN and Pheasant? Right now, we've got whatever the residents we have, but you're basically proposing to put another 137 homes probably on all this property, somewhere in that range. And which is by normal, most homes have 2 cars. If you want to do the research, they say 1.8. So basically that's right around 252 vehicles going through that intersection. And as anybody that lives out here and is around this area and goes through that intersection of Pheasant and NN knows that trying to go south off of NN and get onto Pheasant, you're crossing traffic. And that traffic is not being stopped. I think a lady earlier said something about she'd like the speed limit to be reduced, which I think it's 55 now. Of course, the corners, nobody can really take it at 55, but I can guarantee you can take it at 45 or so. So that is an issue I don't know if the city has looked at or is proposing to fix before you create an enormous amount more of traffic through this area.
Okay, very good. Thank you, sir. We certainly appreciate that, and is a valid point. I do have to say that there's a process that we have to follow, and the traffic studies will come at a later date. It's not part of the zoning process. That's more in the plating process. So we have to do things in order. Although your comments are well spoken and understood, for us to speak to that, we just simply couldn't do that at this point. When we come to the plating stage of this, then we can be talking about all these other details outside of the annexation or the zoning. Does that make sense?
Okay, well, yes and no. Okay, because you're talking about zoning, and you're talking about zoning for X amount of homes or whatever. I believe in this whole bigger gamut of stuff, I believe the 42 acres, and I know it's not has to do with what we're talking about right now, but it's at a 15,000 square foot lot size, and everything else now in this other new area that we're talking about is at 10,000 square feet lot size. And I know that we're going to be getting to the 40 some odd acres and reducing it. And that's where I come up with the numbers of around 137 homes, which creates more traffic. I would think you would do a study of that corner before putting in that amount of traffic to it.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So I think that should be one of the first things the city would be required to, if you were going to even consider any of this zoning of this property. So.
Okay, sir. Thank you. We appreciate your input.
All right.
Anyone else? Oh, hang on a second, Daryl. Anyone else either on Zoom or in the audience would care to speak to this? Yes, sir. Go right ahead.
Yes. I'll state right up front, I'm completely opposed to the plan as it exists right now. And the reasons are multifold. Traffic is one of them, clearly. It's a problem. And I think that was well addressed already. Another is just the character of the neighborhood. It doesn't take much to look at the plat map of this area here and to see that the lot sizes being proposed in all of this development are simply not in character with the rest of the developments on the east side of Pheasant Road. We already let Shenandoah slip through, or Chantilly, or whatever it is, across the street here with smaller lot sizes. I'd hate to see the character of the neighborhood downgraded to the extent it would be if you put 20 homes on a chunk of land, but the first 2 in depth coming off of Pheasant, where there is currently 1 home. My property sits on 100,000 square feet, and that's not atypical of what's out here. So talking about 10,000 square foot lots, that's ridiculous. Second issue is the water drainage. I'm down at the bottom of the hill just off of Pheasant, and Chantilly comes through there. Pear Tree has been built since I've been here. All their water drains down Pheasant Road. Lake Crest has been built since I was here. They're not a big impactor on water, but they certainly increased it some. Gray Haven, all of these come to a confluence right at the bottom of my driveway or just over the hill from that to the south. And anybody that drives those roads knows that how frequently those bottom areas go underwater. Currently, 2 to 3 times a year, we cannot get out of our driveway. We can't put mail in the mailbox because the people screaming down the road soak everything inside the mailbox even, because the rooster tails from driving through spray 10, 15, 20 feet in the air as people blast through that standing water. And another issue I'd like, you say offhandedly that you have adequate capacity for utility. What routing you're planning to do for sewer service to all this area?
Well, sir, I'll go back.
When it gets to be your time to discuss for discussion, would you please cover that in much more detail?
Absolutely, sir. It is certainly going to be part of the conversation when we get to that stage. You bet.
I think that about covers some of the directions that I have a concern beyond just my personal problem with the well.
Very good. Thank you, sir. We appreciate your input. Anyone else care? On Zoom or in person? Okay, I will close the public hearing portion of this and turn it over to the commission.
Hold on.
I beg your pardon?
We do have someone in the audience that does want to speak.
Okay. Come forward, give your name and address to Megan, please. And you'll have 5 minutes to speak.
Okay. Yes, again, Mary Coughlin, 5912 North 13th Avenue. And I didn't speak previously on Pheasant Road. I'm, like you say, I'm new here and I don't know the roads. But I am really concerned about the planning, about the zoning. I moved from Springfield and it seems like the zoning is so willy-nilly and it does impact neighborhoods. I would be against this too because this proposal, I really think we need to step back and look, and it seems like the zoning should come later after a study has been made. I believe there may be more desirable areas to put high density subdivisions. And like I say, that's the attraction of this area. This area is like a plum to be picked and people are moving in, but we need to retain the character, the rural character. If I look on the, be the devil's advocate and look on the homeowners, or rather the property owner side, Mr. and Mrs. Urack or Urack, they feel, oh, we should be able to do what we want with our property, but hopefully there would be a lucrative investment return for them if they did keep it as an agricultural property, rented it out, etc. Anyway, I just hope that you all proceed with wisdom because I don't want to lose the flavor of this beautiful area. Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to speak.
You're very welcome. Thank you for coming forward. Anyone else?
Yeah, I would, John Turner, 1595 East Lake Crest Drive. I have a question. I realize this is the preliminary plat, but have the commissioners seen the preliminary plat? Have you seen this?
You talking about the full project?
Uh-huh.
Well, sir, I'll have to remind you that it's irrelevant to the conversation that we're having tonight.
But I'm just asking, have you seen it? Me describing the difference of a 10,000 square feet and a 15,000 square feet. If you've seen it, I mean, so I'm just going to, okay, I'm sorry. I'm just going to assume you haven't seen it. Okay. The preliminary plat puts 15 houses on this little strip of land here with 10,000 square feet that's there. And I realize that you say that's not part of this process, but I want to agree with Kenton and others that have mentioned to this, is that if we're looking at 140 houses or 135 houses back there, that's really different than if we're looking at 75 houses. And again, my number one concern, I heard Mr. Bodine, and I would like to hear from him again. I heard him promise the people at Pear Tree that he was not going to push water onto Pear Tree, but that's not a hard trick because that's uphill. Okay. And it's cutting across them, but I'm at the bottom of the hill down here, folks. I mean, if you saw the visual images of that roaring water coming down that hill that's coming across this land here, every extra house you put on there is an extra roof, is an extra driveway, is an extra sidewalk. And anything that we can do that reduces the number of houses, maintains the land so that it can absorb into the water, is going to help this situation, I think, tremendously. And so I think that's the reason that you have to listen to our concerns here. I know you're thinking here, we're all on big lots out here. We all have 2 or 3 acres. That's true. We're looking at 10,000 square feet, but it's also about that water is not going to get into the ground. And I know you say we're going to look at this and we'll review it. But to be perfectly honest with you, Mr. Branch, we don't have a whole lot of trust depending on what's already happened up at Grand Haven, okay, because that made our problem worse and we didn't complain. And so we're going to complain at every level on this because we feel like we were quiet and we're good neighbors last time and we've paid a price for it now. And so having these lots be bigger, set at your standard of 15,000 square feet is going to help us reduce that amount of water that's coming down to those of us at the bottom of the hill.
Well, sir, I encourage you to continue to have these conversations, and I can assure you that the commission is taking each one of these comments to heart. Just because we're not allowed to speak on them at this particular moment does not mean that we're not paying attention. So I absolutely encourage you to continue to come back, voice your opinion. That's what this process is for the public to come forward, voice their opinion, and we absolutely encourage that. But please understand, we are listening to what it is you're saying. Very good, thank you. Anyone else? Okay, then I will go ahead and close the public hearing portion of this and turn it over to the commission. And as I've said before, and I will state again and continue to state, remember, we're here to talk about the annexation of this parcel only, not the other properties nor the drainage issue. So we're talking about annexation. Excuse me, we're talking about zoning. So please confine your comments to the zoning portion of this, and I turn it over to you. Comments, questions? Daryl.
This is to Cameron. I know the state highway out there is in, but most of the other roads out there, are they not a special road district?
Yes, they are. They are a special road district, and it's something that's kind of addressed some of that traffic that's been brought up. I know the applicant is looking into that, and that's something when they get to that platting stage, they would have to evaluate the traffic and transportation in the road districts.
So to kind of clarify that a little bit to these people that's opposing this, the traffic, yes, we're going to set the lot size, but the traffic is going to have to be dealt with by the Ozark Special Road District, not the city.
The city will have jurisdiction over the property within the development. But yes, when it gets onto those outlying roads that are owned and maintained by Ozark Special Road District, they would also have to concur and evaluate that traffic study and any required improvements as a result of that study.
Thank you.
Good point, Daryl. Anyone else? Okay, seeing none.
Chairman,
Go ahead, Jean Ann.
Okay, just a couple of thoughts, and that is that with the new Riverside Bridge, I think the traffic will be even increasing at that intersection more of people who are heading from the east side of Christian County and Ozark and going north on 90 NN 260 and then cutting into the city. So I think even without this development, that traffic is going to increase. So it concerns me, the density and adding that many cars and more traffic to probably a increasing count anyway, that intersection, which is not an easy intersection to start with. And then I guess another comment I had was on the character. I know that the property to the west is R1C, but it is separated by a public street, a thoroughfare street, from all the properties on the east side of that, which the most dense there is the R1B, R1B, correct? Either that's the most dense of the zoning that exists now on the east side of Pheasant River.
Within the city, yes, the most dense next to it is the R1B, which is the original 41 acre tract. And to the north, Grand Haven is R1C, the same zone.
It's R1C?
Yes, Grand Haven is R1C.
Okay. But directly east, it's R1B,
The,
correct?
the prior approval of the original 41 acres.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Very good. Daryl?
Hasn't some of our zoning changed since some of this has been put in? As far as from a C to a B? Did we change some of that recently? Maybe I'm not recalling, but it seems like we did.
There's been discussions about the single family zoning districts, but nothing has
No
changed.
decision's been made.
And yeah, in the last, since 2017, I know there hasn't been any changes.
Okay, my bad.
No worries. Anyone else?
I had another question just for information purposes. So if an easement was protected in the agreement to bring it into the city, the annexation, and the easement on the well is protected, does that also protect, that easement would be protected during the planning and platting of the streets and houses so that nothing would be built over that well or its lines towards the people in the county?
That would be my understanding.
Thank you. Yeah.
Anyone else? Okay, seeing none, I would entertain a motion.
Chairman Branch, may I ask a question?
You certainly may. Go right ahead.
I'm sorry. In the voting or looking at this particular amendment, they're requesting it to be a C. We're not really rezoning it. We're just zoning it as it's being annexed, correct?
That is correct. It's the second part of the process, annexation, then zoning.
Can this zoning amendment be recommended to be approved at an R1B at this time, or would it simply need to be a no vote? If I didn't want it, if I didn't agree with the C, it's what I'm asking.
Mr. Smith?
Well, the application in front of you is a request to zone R1C. So in a sense, I guess you've got two options or two scenarios. One, you can recommend approval or denial of the request onto the Board of Aldermen and they address the zoning at that time. Or however, I guess you have the opportunity or could consider modifying that zoning request to R1B. I guess it's in your guys' hands for that recommendation. Can't tell you exactly where to go or what the decision will be, but if that's something you guys would choose to do, that could be later addressed with the Board of Aldermen as well.
Thank you.
Okay, so I'll go back. Do we have a motion?
I will make a motion that we accept Amendment 485 as R1B, not C.
Okay, so we have a motion on the floor to accept the property at 5174 North Pheasant as a changing from an R1C recommendation to an R1B. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, so I have a second to change the recommendation from an R1C to an R1B. The 2021 485 located at 5174 North Pheasant. Roll call vote, please.
Daryl McGuire,
Aye.
Jean Ann Hutchinson,
Aye.
Jeff Garrison,
Aye.
John Dillon,
Aye.
William Oates,
Aye.
Alexi Pavlov,
Aye.
Pete Renfro.
Aye.
The ayes have it, the motion passes.
All right, thank you. On to the next. G, zoning amendment 2021-486. Todd and Tina Yernick, located parcel 5174 North Pheasant Road, proposed R1C single family. Mr. Smith.
Yes, this is the second parcel that you guys considered for the annexation, which is just east of the prior application. The request is to zone this R1C. This zoning request does conform to the comprehensive plan and the surrounding zoning districts within the city. The zoning amendment is supportive of the other applications on the agenda tonight that you have seen. And with that, staff has evaluated the existing infrastructure to confirm that there is capacity to support a development in this area. Based on the staff's finding report, staff did recommend approval of the zoning request of R1C.
Thank you. Applicant, care to add anything?
I lost you.
There you are.
Dave, we can hear you.
We got you,
There you
Dave.
go. I'm a little bit befuddled, but I'll try to proceed. I want to make sure everyone understands. The city of Ozark has a process for stormwater detention where no more water can drain off of this site than is currently generated by the green space on this site. That means if there are 2 rooftops out there, or if there are 200 rooftops out there, the same amount of water would have to go out of the detention basin. The number of rooftops is factored into the size of the detention. There's no more water that's going to run off of this site than currently runs off of it now. Now, in saying that, I understand the neighbors' issues because that is not the case with the Grand Haven detention basin. It's an open flume and water that comes in goes out. There's nothing slowing that water down. But current City of Ozark regulations require that I design a detention basin that only allows the water out of the detention basin that is equal to what is going out now off the site. The number of rooftops does not come into that. It's just how large I make the detention basin. So the residents at Pear Tree shouldn't have any water issues from this. The residents downstream, assuming that I design an adequate stormwater detention basin that I've designed 1,000 times before, shouldn't have any issue with that. I understand that there are issues, but they're not issues that we've made, and there are not issues that we would participate in the future. We would design a detention basin that works. It would be reviewed and approved by the city. And that's all I have. And I'm sorry for my dismay. We've been through this exact same issue where we were zoned something we did not request previously, and it's, to be honest, it's frustrating.
Thank you, sir. Let me open up the public portion of this. Is there anyone to speak in favor of this?
Yeah, Chuck, this is Steve Johnson.
Yes, sir.
1757 East Lake Crest Drive. I am the developer. Just for context here, I know we're getting way in the weeds here, just like happens every time for whatever reason. As an average, everybody's focused on R1C being as 10,000 square feet. We're the overall average of the entire property, the 41.8 acres and the other 8 acres, that breaks down, when you look at the lot size, it breaks down to roughly 16,188.71 square feet per lot is what the average would be over that entire property. So just for context, because again, we're way deep in the weeds where we shouldn't be, and everybody's focused on 10,000 square feet, over the size of the entire project, we're talking about a density of 16,188.71 square feet per lot. That's all I had to add.
Nope, you're absolutely right. Let me clarify one thing. When the public comes forward during the public hearing portion of this, they're allowed to speak about anything that they want to speak about, and we really can't stop them. Where it gets into the weeds, or where we try to keep it out of the weeds, is when the commissioners take over and they start talking about the subject matter. But I understand your point. But when the public comes forward, we have to let them speak within that time frame about whatever it is they want to speak about. And hopefully that when the commission takes the issue over, their focus is on whatever the application is. And I think in most every case, that is the case.
Yeah, and Chuck, I appreciate that. I don't want anybody to be stifled. That is not my intent here. But when all of the conversation moves to a specific number, and no one really knows what that number is, I mean, that's where everybody gets confused and misinformation gets out there to the public, and it just fuels their anxiety. And we certainly understand their anxiety, especially with regard to the water problems. We have reached out numerous times to the HOA over at Grand Haven, offering our help because we feel like there's a fairly easy solution for a reduction of that outflow, because we understand the problems that folks are having and their concerns, and we agree with those, as well as the traffic. And we've gone to incredible lengths to try to make sure that we do everything possible to A, be good neighbors, B, to mitigate any current existing issues that are out there that are with our ability to do that at the time of this development. And all of those factors are the pieces that get missed in these discussions. Again, I don't want anybody stifled. I want them to air their concerns, and I want them to actually hear the facts. But again, we get into this process where we're told it's just zoning dirt or annexing dirt, and we're going with a specific zoning, and then we have to meet the requirements to get to that zoning after the fact. But all of that gets lost and jumbled up, and we end up in a really awkward, strange place each time. And so anyway, I just want to make sure I leave the impression with everybody that over the course of this project, the average lots, are going to be no more denser than 16,188.71 square feet overall.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Okay, so let's go ahead and open this up to the public hearing. Anybody to speak in favor of this? Anyone to speak in opposition to this?
Yes,
sir.
I'd like somebody in the audience.
Okay, please come forward and state your name and address, and you have 5 minutes to speak.
Chris Summers, 770 Ridge Park, Ozark. I'm also one of your commissioners on the Ozark Special Road District. I'm a little bit troubled by what I'm hearing tonight with regards to traffic issues and water drainage on our specifically our road, Pheasant Road. And my trouble is that if you're going to be annexing this particular area, then I would request that you annex that roadway also. So therefore you can imply all the developments that need to go forward into the roadway to take care of alleviate the traffic problems and the amount of traffic. With the small budget that we have at the Ozark Special Road District and over 100 miles of roadway to take care of, I think that it would be a lot more better suited for the city to go ahead and take that particular roadway over for the annexation area that you're proceeding with. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, sir. Anyone else?
Yes, sir. I'd like to speak against the change.
Again, name and address, and you have 5 minutes.
Okay, Nathan McCartney. I'm at 1631 East Pear Tree. I know the engineer, Mr. Bourdin, is saying that we're downstream, but I actually border this property to the west, and I'm pretty much the low property. The pictures that Sherry showed was my backyard, and in fact, the previous owner had to build those berms specifically to handle the water. It's been in my basement, so I appreciate John's issue, but it has been in my basement, and if they continue to develop that plot right there to my east. I know the argument that, we have to follow the Ozark rules, but again, we've heard that song and dance, and we keep hearing about their intentions. And once this thing gets passed, there's no real way for us to hold their feet to the fire. So I won't continue to beat the water horse to death. I'll second the roadway concerns. I do think that's a very valid concern, also from a safety standpoint. But I think really a lot of these concerns come down to the density. We all have 2 to 3 acre plots. Most of this area is a rather large plot area. The developer just made a fantastic case for leaving this an R1B property, since the average is going to be 16,000 some square feet per lot. So I really don't understand what the drive and the request to get to a 10,000 square foot lot is, if the developer's plans call for 16,000 square foot lots. So I would urge you to stick to the R1B and the larger plot designation, since that apparently conforms with their plans anyway. So I really don't understand why they're trying to continue to make this a more dense area and continue to just overall change what's going on. Again, with the density, they're talking 140 some odd houses. I've got lots of land with very few neighbors around me. I'm gonna have a whole lot of backyards looking into my back deck as they continue to try and push this through and push more houses onto a smaller and smaller area for what I gotta believe is only an ability to pad their profit margin. But that's basically where I'm at. Like I said, I completely agree with the R1B designation, and I would like to remind the commission that's what was voted on before, and they're asking you to go back away from where you had originally designated this and to change that designation again. So I'd ask you to please side with where you came down the first time. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, sir. Anyone else? Yes, go right ahead. Name and
Yes.
address once again, and you got 5 minutes.
Kenton Wright, 4996 North Pheasant Drive. I too am an engineer and I can do math now and again. If you take the whole total acreage and divide it by the number of units you plan to put on it, you end up with 16,000 square feet. The confusion I think I can address a little bit is that he's not subtracting out roadways and common areas in coming to the net lot size. The drawings I've seen not run the math to get the individual average or the total average for all the individual numbers. But I guarantee you it's not 16,000 feet inside the property line of each lot. I have the same opposition to the density of houses here as I had before on this second 4 acres going back away from the road. In fact, in my mind, to be more in the character of the neighborhood, I would drive strongly towards 25, 30,000 square foot lots as being a reasonable compromise with the developers on what this area really can handle and should handle. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Anyone else?
Oh, one more thing.
Yes, go
Sorry.
right ahead.
You all failed to address my questions about the sewage last time.
Well, sir, we didn't fail to it. It's just, they're just topics that we cannot discuss at this time. That's all plating issues. So just come back when it comes time for the plating issues and bring up your questions yet once again.
In the discussion phase, can the developer or some other
Not
representative
at this
have a
stage right now.
discussion
No,
on
sir.
that?
No, sir. We have a process we have to follow. Thank you for asking, though. Mr.
Can
Turner?
I also have 5 minutes? I won't take that long.
Oh, yes,
This
go
is
right ahead.
Ann Wright, 4996 North Pheasant Drive.
Please.
Part of the reason why we're bringing up the sewer is that you have a pump station which is directly across the street from us. And I don't know if anyone else has lived close to a lift station before. It makes noise, it goes off. There's a lot of things that go on. And power failures. And when if you're going to bring all that sewer down to a single lift station that is also along Pheasant Drive, something's not being looked at correctly, if that's the only way to eliminate sewage from this area. I'm so very concerned about the water runoff. Ever since you put in the neighborhood across the street, the city of Ozark, this whole neighborhood has been flooded. I cannot get to my mailbox if it's flowing downhill. This did not happen. The ditch has been broken up, torn up repeatedly year after year after year. And yes, the Porsche Road District comes out here and pretends to do something. And they obviously don't understand a clue about water drainage. Yet the city of Ozark's allowed to put in retention centers that do not collect a bit of water, and it flows down the street into Pheasant, tears up the roadway again, and the county has to deal with it. And it's the city's responsibility to either write better laws on how your retention ponds are put in or do something. Cut me off.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Turner?
Yeah, and I know I'm speaking a lot on this, but one thing I did, and the developer mentioned this, and I just want to point this out, that he said, and I understand that he may be a great guy to work with, but everybody on my road over here, we've been here 10, 15 years, at least, some of us 30, okay? And they say they're going to Grand Haven. They've never come to Lake Crest, and I don't know if they've come to Pear Tree. They understand, and I understand that they say that we don't want to be held to the Grand Haven issue. but that is just where the water starts. That's when things get washed into a sewage lagoon. You know, you should see the things that come down in that, and I can't even imagine what comes through Pear Tree back there. By the time it gets to my property and the fence of my property, when we have a rain, we're digging out all the things that have gone into the drains up there at Grand Haven that's flow down to us, you know. And so they need to be talking lower downstream. And again, just on this point of these square feet issues and things like that, is that again, we're worried. And I understand, I hear the code. They're saying, we're not going to put out any more water that's coming on. Well, we know there's a problem already, because that water, if you look at that visualization, that water is already coming, and I'll just put it up there. I finally figured out how the share is different. That water is coming out of that drainage thing up at Grand Haven, and then it's flowing onto their property. And so when I hear them say that they're not going to put out any more water that's coming on them already, well, we've got a hell of a problem right now. And so if all they're going to do is make sure that they're not going to help with these issues right now that are coming across their property here and then coming down through here, and here's my home and here's the big lake, that just having it equal to what we have right now is not good enough. Is that there's got to be some kind of resolution, and they need to talk less up here with the people at Grand Haven. They need to talk more down with the people down here that are having to deal with the problems that have existed since that Grand Haven addition has been put in.
Okay, sir, thank you. Anyone else? Okay, I'll close the public hearing portion of this and turn it over to the commission. Allow me to please restate that we are here to talk about the zoning of this piece of property, and not sewage and not roads and not traffic. As you're making your determination, those issues will come back to us again. Please keep your comments and your questions to staff directed towards the zoning of this piece of property. So I'll turn it over to you, and comments, questions, or thoughts. Okay, seeing none.
I think we might as well.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
No,
I'm just going to cut to the chase and make the recommendation that we approve this 486, just like we did 485, and changing it to an R1B, I guess amending the amendment.
So let me go back and call for a motion. Okay, so make your motion.
Okay, I'm sorry.
No, that's all right. Make your motion.
Okay, I motion that we approve amendment 486, changing the zoning to R1B.
Okay, so we have a motion on the floor for 486 to change the zoning from R1C recommended to R1B. Do I have a second?
I second that.
Okay, so we have a first and a second for property at 2021 486, Todd and Tina Yernick, located at 5174 North Pheasant, from a R1C to a recommended R1B. Roll call vote, please.
McGuire.
Who?
You.
McGuire.
Aye.
Jean Ann Hutchinson.
Aye.
Jeff Garrison.
Aye.
John Dillon.
Aye.
Wim Oakes.
Aye.
Alexei Pavlov.
Aye.
Keith Renfro.
Aye.
The ayes have it, the motion passes.
Okay, thank you. All right, next up, letter H on your agenda, zoning amendment 2021-487, Fortress Land Development LLC, property 41 acres south of Grand Haven subdivision, current R1B, proposed R1C. Mr. Smith.
Yes, the applicant has requested to rezone the property from R1B to R1C. This was the similar request they originally had when they first proposed the zoning request of R1C that staff did recommend approval of that. In evaluating the R1C request, it does conform to the comprehensive plan and the surrounding zoning districts. The Grand Haven subdivision to the north is R1C zoning. Based on the surrounding uses and approval before, noting that we did have the capacities to serve this development, staff did recommend approval again of the R1C zoning district.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Applicant, care to comment on this?
I will talk about the same things that I've previously talked about. We went to, when this originally went through planning and zoning, Grand Haven came out, some of you may remember, and they had extensive issues with them being our through street. That was our only access, public access out of the 40 acres because it's landlocked other than to the north. There's also an emergency access out to the east, but it goes through a yard of one of the estate lots. The current plan is for larger lots around the perimeter of the 40 acres to match as closely to what the perimeter is. I know those are large estate lots, but for example, lots adjacent to Pear Tree were 16,000 square feet. Lots to the south along Lake Crest were 14 to 15,000 square feet also. So we made an attempt, or are currently making an attempt to make those perimeter lots larger. Again, stormwater will abide by all the city's stormwater regulations. We'll hopefully work with Grand Haven to improve everyone's stormwater issues. We'll work with the developer, the Grubaugh property, with regard to stormwater and sewer to hopefully improve everyone's issues. I'm not sure how the development will proceed now with the 2 4-acre tracts being R1B. I would assume there will still be a road through there that will connect to this 40 acres. And that's about it. I'll make myself available for any questions.
Thank you, sir. Okay, I'll open up the public hearing on this. I would ask that there's been a lot of discussion tonight on stormwater and sewer, and all that's perfectly fine. But if we have something new to add to the conversation, that'd be wonderful with respect to opposition. I will ask if there's anybody out there in favor of this proposal to come forward. If there's anyone in opposition to this, please come forward as well.
Yeah, I'd like to speak in opposition again on this one. Nathan McCartney, 1631 East Pear Tree.
All right, you got 5 minutes, sir.
Okay. The developers continue to come out and make claims that they're trying to meet the neighborhoods and meet us halfway. A 16,000 lot is roughly 1/8 of the size of my lot. Mine's 8 times larger than that, as are most of the lots around this area. So that's really not a great concession. Again, it was zoned R1B. If they are true to their word that they really want to build big lots that match this area and match our density, then I don't understand why they're pushing so hard for an R1C designation. Again, they talk about the traffic concerns with the roads. They have managed now, it seems, to have found another exit since they got the annexation of the first front of the property. But again, I just urge you to please side with the R1B as you did the first time, and as you've already done earlier tonight. Please keep that trend. I think it will do it's at least the best compromise. If we can't get a bigger lot, at least we can get a 15,000 acre or 15,000 square foot lot. But I agree with the previous guys. I would love to see 25, 30,000 square foot, but we'll take what we can get and try and at least find some kind of ground. I appreciate what you all are doing. Thanks.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else?
Yes, we have someone from the audience.
Okay, please come forward and state your name and address.
Cameron, could you turn their mic up or something? It's difficult for me to hear them.
Okay. You might just stand. It's over here, but so if you're a little further back.
Okay.
There you go.
Okay, yes, again, Mary Coughlin, 5912 North 13th Avenue, Ozark. And I'm concerned about a large development going back there, especially if, well, I know we have to take things as they come, but, well, I tell you, if you're ever up there on NN, there is a lot of traffic. That's what I'm concerned about. I've been reading that the special road district doesn't have the money to put in another road. And I know MoDOT is strapped. There's deep culverts on either side of Double End Highway. I guess my concern is the traffic issue in that regard, especially if we get a higher density per in that area. And again, trying to just keep the rural area, the rural feel of Eastern Christian County. I just would favor a more overall plan for the entire county as far as subdivision zoning. Anyway, thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you very much. Anyone else? Okay, I'll close the public hearing portion of this and turn it over to the commission. Same rules apply. Please feel free. Okay, seeing none, I would entertain a motion on annexation, or excuse me, on zoning 487. Daryl.
I'll make a motion that we deny the R1C and maintain the R1B that it was zoned originally.
Okay, so I have a motion on the floor to deny the R1C, to turn it to, keep it as an R1B as it was originally. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Who seconded? Wem, is that you?
Yes, sir.
Okay, Wem Oak seconded. So we have a motion on the floor for 2021-487 Fortress Land Development, 41 acres south of Grand Haven, to an R1B. Roll call vote, please.
Daryl McGuire,
Aye.
Jean Ann Hutchinson,
Aye.
Jeff Garrison,
Aye.
John Dillon,
Aye.
Wim Oates,
Aye.
Alexi Pavlov,
Aye.
Keith Renfro.
Aye.
The ayes have it. The motion is denied.
Okay, thank you. Discussion. Any further discussion outside of what we talked about tonight from around the commissioners? Any commission comments whatsoever? Staff comments?
No comments at this time.
Visitor comments? Okay, in that case, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion, we adjourn.
A motion on the floor to adjourn. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor, just raise your hand. Very good. Thank you all very much.